All right, getting into the manual flight display of the DJI Pilot app. This is going to be with the Mavic 2 Enterprise series, but just like previous videos, the Mavic 2 Enterprise series is really a great starting point because with larger aircraft, the display is going to be very similar with a few additional features, but understanding these first is vital. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is our main screen here. First off, you can see in the top left the DJI logo. I'll follow along with the mouse here, but that you'd be able to go back to the main menu where we originally selected manual flight or mission flight. This is manual flight here. Moving over the current aircraft status, and you can also click this bar right here to see the checklist we talked about in the last video. Allows you to make quick settings adjustments for some key areas and also check the aircraft beforehand. The current flight mode, right now it is in positioning that we talked about in the flight modes before. DJI AirSense we'll touch on in a later bit of this presentation. The number of satellites, which the GPS on board of the aircraft is currently connected with, so it would be 9. The vision system of the aircraft, so you can see right now because of the red, that would be the left and the right side of the vision system are currently not active on the Mavic 2 Enterprise system here. RC signal strength, video transmission, so currently transmitting with the 5.8 gigahertz band, current battery life, and the nice thing about all the menu items on the top here is you can click on them to go into the detailed settings menu that we covered in our last video. Current camera settings for the Mavic 2 Enterprise zoom in this case, ISO, shutter, exposure value. Click on this button right here to expand the zoom slider. Media settings, so change video type MP4 or MOV. We'll get into that menu later on. Photo video toggle, so you can toggle between photo and video. You could also just press the button on your remote controller. I find it to be easier to start and stop video and photo, and you don't necessarily need to be in video mode to start a video from your remote controller button. But if you'd like to do that on a screen, you can toggle between photo and video right there. If you'd like to take a photo or stop and start the video, that would be the shutter button. If you'd like to see media currently on the SD card or internal storage of the aircraft, you can go ahead and click on Media Library to review that. Camera settings here, such as the exposure value, we'll talk about when we get into the in-flight functions. Moving over here on the left side here, we have the map, and then the bell notifications. It'll give you a number. If there is a certain number of notifications, you can also click on that to see them. Notifications will pop up and then be stored in the bell itself, so it won't take up space on the screen. And then if you have an attachment on the Mavic 2 Enterprise series, for example, we have the spotlight here, it would be a quick button there to turn it on and off. Moving on, you can see the drone is now in air, connected to GPS, it's flying, so it's in-flight GPS is the current aircraft status. You can also see the current estimation of remaining battery life, 15 minutes, 21 seconds, and how we talked about before, the battery levels we set in our detailed settings, and the smart return to home point. The current camera view right now with the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual is shown, so it's the visible camera. If we wanted to select a different camera view, we could select MSX or IR. You can see the timestamp function is turned on, which we'll get into later on, which adds a GPS location and date and time to a photo. Can open the directional view instead of having the map view in the bottom left, if preferred, and then can see some key telemetry information. So distance is the distance from home. If the drone goes up or down, it's not going to change that distance, but if we move the drone farther away, left, right, that distance is going to change. Height is the height in relation to the takeoff point. Key thing to remember here, if you take off on top of a mountain and you fly out straight, if you took off 10 feet up from your takeoff point on top of the mountain, it's still going to display 10 feet, even if the AGL is much different. Horizontal speed of the drone, HS, vertical speed, VS, horizontal obviously going horizontal, vertical, up and down. Storage space remaining would be the SD card pictured there, and we can also see we're in photo mode, so we could take 7,102 more photos. The bottom left there, we can see the current heading of the drone, 346 degrees, so that would be north. GPS location of the drone as well. We talked about how you can turn that on or off in the detailed settings, common settings submenu. The zoom slider we can see is expanded here. So if you turn that on, it'll pop up. You could also use the right dial on the remote controller, or you can adjust it here on the app by dragging that up and down. Getting into the map here, so if we clicked on the bottom left on that map, can go back to the camera view by clicking the camera view itself in the bottom left. But just taking a look, our drone took off, and you can see its previous flight trajectory is the gray line. So you can think about an airplane in the sky. Maybe it's drawing out the letters of the message, and the smoke's coming out of the back of the aircraft. That's similar to what see flight trajectory here. The gray line pretty much follows wherever the aircraft goes. So you can see took off at the home point, went up to the right, came back. Now the drone's here. So this would be the current drone location and direction. So the pointy end of the triangle here is pointing towards the current heading of the drone, and the green is showing what the gimbal is looking at straight ahead. The picture of the remote controller is the remote controller location. The H is the home point, and the orange is the path to return to the home point, and that changes dynamically as the drone is flying. Continuing on with the map here, the I button would allow you to hide geozones if you did not want those to be shown, referring to the DJI no-fly zones, geofencing. The center button just centers the screen. It's a little farther zoomed out, but if you're looking at a different part of the map and you wanted to bring it back, you could just hit the center to location button. This is probably familiar to you if you use a map service while driving. You can lock the map to be facing north, being the top of your screen, or you can allow the map to be rotated so you can see the map as it is rotated. It also changes the button itself. Here you can select standard or satellite map, which requires internet. You can download standard map sections as an offline map, as we covered in the Pilot app main menu video. You can clear the flight trajectory if you have that setting on and you no longer want that flight trajectory to be shown. So that gray line that's following behind the aircraft, you can go ahead and clear that out by clicking on the eraser. And then getting into AirSense. So the AirSense button here will control if you want this menu up. You can also just click on the hide button. But what this AirSense system is showing is any aircraft in the area. The drone itself has an ADS-B in, so it's receiving ADS-B out messages from any aircraft in the area. Not all other manned aircraft are going to necessarily have ADS-B out. Think about helicopters and various other factors, but it's a great safety feature to have. So it's going to be red if the aircraft is within 1 kilometer. It's going to be yellow within 2, and then blue just when an aircraft is detected. So you can see the difference there. Aircraft 1,500 feet away, aircraft about 3,600 feet away, aircraft 7,100 feet away. And it's nice, it shows you a live display in the map. It also gave us a notification that I had hidden, popped up here again. Obviously the aircraft had moved out of that red area at this point, but the notification is shown. Now it's turned yellow. You can kind of see it behind the AirSense system there. But that's what AirSense is going to show. And then also now talk about the indicator at the top of the app here. We can see it changes color as well, along with the aircraft that's shown on the map. Red, yellow, and blue. And just a quick review, we can see we now have 17 satellites connected. We can see vision system, RC signal strength, video transmission signal strength, and battery life on the top there. One other thing I wanted to cover in this video, certainly go more in depth on this and other ones, but just if you're seeing this unable to take off, something that may be preventing you from taking off is DJI's geofencing, which comes with all DJI drones as a safety feature. But what you'd want to do in this situation is check the map, and then you could see on the map here that the aircraft is in a blue authorization zone. If you pull up a screenshot here from the FlySafe website, great resource to learn more about this, you can see blue is authorization zone, gray is an altitude zone, and red is a restricted zone. Authorization zones, which are blue, can be unlocked in the app. And just a reminder here that DJI geofencing is not the same as getting legal permission to fly. The two are different, but somewhat connected at the same time, because if you want to unlock certain DJI geofencing, you do need to provide the legal authorization in order to do so. But you can see right next to an airport here. But when we're talking about flying in an authorization zone, as I said, you can complete self-unlocking in the app with an internet connection and an authorized DJI account. And how you do that is you go ahead and start the motors. So pull the RC6 down and in. Don't have the propellers on, but it's going to head and pop up with a message here that says, hey, you're in an authorization zone. Do you wish to apply for self-unlocking to access the zone? Go ahead and say, okay, check the boxes. And if this is your first time, it's going to go ahead and do a verification process. So you can see the web page not available because there's no internet connection. So if the internet connection is there, you can go ahead, enter the phone number, do a confirmation with the code you get, and then when you go ahead and check the boxes and hit OK, the unlocking will be successful. So that is just how, if you're in an authorization zone and you want to do self-unlocking in the Pilot app, how that would happen. If we're talking about a restricted zone, an altitude zone, or an authorization zone where you don't have internet, you want to go ahead and do a custom unlock, or public safety or governmental entity in supported areas could join the Qualified Entities Program for long-term wide area unlocking certificates. But as we've covered in previous videos, specifically I believe it was the main menu one, you'd go ahead and import the unlocking certificate and enable it, and that would allow you to fly in one of those DJI geofencing areas. Remember again, DJI geofencing and not the same as legal authorization to be flying somewhere, just a step that needs to be taken in order to fly in those areas where there is DJI geofencing. All right, that's a bit about it for this video, and we'll be in the air for our next video talking about manual functions.